June 10th, 1994 was the worst day of my life. That is the day that Antonio Jackson made a decision to commit armed robbery and murder my father, Glenn Lackaby, and grandfather, Walter David Lackaby. This letter will reflect the changes in my life as a result of his actions that day. I was 12 years old that morning, sleeping in the bed with my mom. At 5:45 a.m., the phone rang and my mom answered. She was in an immediate panic. I remember her running across the street to my neighbor's house as she was frantically crying and screaming on the phone.
You heard right. She lost both her father and grandfather at the same moment when Mr. Jackson and two accomplices broke into their store and shot them dead. And that, of course, is the classy Andrew Hunley from the Parole Project showing all due respect as the victim for the first time in her life has the opportunity to express her experience of finding out that she lost her father and her grandfather. Andrew on the phone. We're going to watch this 2020 parole hearing and I'll unpack it with the details of the appeal at the end.
We have Antonio M. Jackson, 363999. 42-year-old first offender, serving 40 years and life for manslaughter and second-degree murder. His parole date was June 22nd, 2019. He does not have a good time date, and his full term is life. Is that correct, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roche has your case today, and he will be the first to ask you questions.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, sir. What about you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Staff, I cannot see the offender on my screen. I'm in the audience mode. I can see 9 or 10 individuals, but I cannot see the offender. Can we rectify that?
Mr. Roche, take your finger and swipe it to the left. Are you on an iPad?
Yes.
Swipe it to the left.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now I have another weapon in my arsenal. Good morning, Mr. Jackson. How are you?
I'm good, sir. What about yourself?
I'm good. I'm going to read some information and enter it into the record. At any time this information is incorrect, stop me and let me know, okay? At any time you don't understand exactly what I'm saying, because I have bad vocal cords, so stop me if you don't understand, okay? Mr. Jackson, you're currently 43 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been incarcerated for 26 years on a life plus 40 sentence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were 17 years old at the time of the offense.
Yes.
And you were sentenced to life without possibility of probation, and just was recently re-sentenced to life with parole eligibility. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
For your information, and you can't do anything about this, the whole legal community is opposed to your early release. The judge, law enforcement, district attorneys, local sheriff's office, and local city police. Everyone is opposed to your early release. You have vehement opposition from the victim's family. Let's talk about your programs. Tell me about the programs that you've completed in the last 26 years.
Well, sir, I've completed quite a few programs. I've got my GED.
Congratulations. When did you get your GED?
I got my GED in 2008.
Okay.
I'm a certified welder. I got my training. I was a tutor. I've taken victim awareness. I've taken CPR. I've taken 100 hours of pre-release. I've taken numerous courses. I'm also a healthcare auditor in Edge 2, where I work with patients that some are handicapped and some can't do things for themselves. So that's my job. I used to work in the kitchen. I also used to work in the visiting shed. As far as programming, I've taken carpentry, and like I said, I've completed the welding course. And
Well, let me make it easier. I'm going to run some by. Have you completed any substance abuse program?
yes, sir.
Have you completed anger management?
Yes, sir.
Thinking for change?
Yes, sir. I got that too.
Victim awareness?
Yes, sir.
Money management?
Say that again, sir. Money management?
You got it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and lastly, 100 hours pre-release.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you answered my second question. My second question, what is your job at the facility? You're a healthcare orderly, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
Do you have trustee status?
No, sir, I do not.
And I know why, and we'll get to that later on. I didn't think you were a trustee, but we'll get to that later on. Tell me what your transition plan is.
My transition plan is to go to the transition home. That's where I'll be residing if granted parole. If not welding, then whatever. I'm willing to do whatever it takes or whatever, I can get that will be beneficial to me and anyone else that I can do. I'm willing
Okay,
to.
Mr. Jackson, tell me where you plan to stay after you finish with the Louisiana Parole Project.
Oh, with my fiance in Shreveport.
Okay, okay. And you have matrimony in mind?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Congratulations. And you've answered my next question. Do you have any vocational skills? And you're a certified welder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have a low tiger, which means that you have a low chance of reoffending, and you have a good mental health evaluation. But my one and major concern is that your institutional record is fair. And when I see an institutional record that's fair, a red flag goes up for me. I says, why is this record after 26 years not good? Well, I read further in the PPI and I found out the answer. You had 39 disciplinary write-ups and only 26 years of incarceration. That's maybe a write-up or two every year. I look further in your record and you've had 8 disciplinary write-ups in the last 10 years. I know you were 17 when you committed this offense, but the last 10 years you were 33, between the ages of 33 and 43. And to have 8 disciplinary write-ups during that period was unacceptable. I looked further and I was a little bit more disturbed. 3 of those disciplinary write-ups were in 2018. Just less than 2 years ago, or 2 years ago. 2 of those write-ups were Class B write-ups for defiance and aggravated disobedience. Yeah, 1 Class A, and number 26, I think that was unsanitary practices. And a Class A write-up is not bad, but when you combine and have multiple write-ups in 1 year, another red flag goes up. You went to the working cell block in 2018 and 2016. Going to the working cell block tells me that these write-ups were not minor, they were major write-ups, and you got the appropriate disciplinary action. This type of behavior is totally unacceptable, simply because we're looking for maturity and rehabilitation. When I see 8 write-ups in 10 years, 3 of them being only 2 years ago, and you've gone to the working cell block twice in the last 4 years, it tells me that the maturity is not there yet. And it concerns me. Juan Bernard, would you like to make any comments or observations?
Mr. Roche, you went through everything pretty good. No, sir, I don't have anything else to say.
Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Mr. Jackson, good morning. My name is Tony Marabella. How are you?
Fine, sir. And how about you?
Mr. Jackson, as Mr. Roche has outlined, you have a pretty, difficult disciplinary record here. You want to talk about that?
Yes, sir.
Anything you got to say about that?
Yes, sir. I do have quite a few write-ups, but within the last 27 months, I haven't had any write-ups. And since the last incident that was 2 years ago in 2018, I've taken 6 courses to help better myself and increase my understanding and knowledge to help me in the future, which I have done, and I've completed 6 courses. Like I say, I've taken.
What courses have you taken since your last write-up in 2018?
I've taken victim awareness. I've taken thinking for a change. I've taken compassion cultivation. I've taken celebrating recovery. And those are just a few of the courses that I have taken since.
Tell me what you got out of those courses that have helped you stay out of trouble.
Well, in thinking for a change, it taught me how to evaluate the situation. Anytime something occurred, well, now take time out for myself, think about the situation, make better decisions. With victim awareness, it has taught me a lot. It has taught me also how to take time out, think about the situation, think about my victims, think about accountability, and be responsible for my actions.
I think Mr. Roche has asked all the other questions that I have. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Among your supporters, I believe Ms. Jackson is going to speak. Ms. Jackson?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jovetta Jackson, the sister of Antonio Jackson. 26 years of incarceration for my brother. I do understand he's made mistakes, but I do feel as he's been rehabilitated. You have to know him. He's a good person. He is. And I really hate that mistakes have been made, but he's human, as we all are. Should parole be granted to my brother? I'm willing to do what it takes, myself as well as the rest of my family. We are here to support him, period.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And Mr. Perry, I assume that you want to reserve your comments to the end after your client. Mr. Perry, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, thank you. Lieutenant Baird, could we hear from you, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay. Speaking on behalf of the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office, we're speaking in opposition. It is a crime of violence and involves the loss of human life. We cannot support his request. In light of what we've heard with regards to his disciplinary activity while incarcerating, especially within the recent years, it further supports our position on this. One of the things, particularly with regards to my experience in a correctional format, I would expect somebody to use that time to prepare themselves for reintegration into society outside. And somebody who's in their 30s and 40s, I just don't expect that. I mean, 3 disciplinaries within the last 2 years, 8 and 10 years. I don't know. I've had experience in a correctional format, and that's what we've seen with regards to documentation. I know that there's a lot that goes unsaid. There's a lot that's handled verbally. There's usually 3 or 4 chances that you get from a correctional officer where they say, "Hey man, don't do that. Hey, stop." So if it comes to not only something that's written, but something that's formal disciplinary, that's a lot. So it further reinforces the position of the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office to oppose the request.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Mr. Hunley, by the way, I did forget about you. I was going to say I didn't forget about you. The truth is I did. But we're going to ask to hear from you after we're finished with the victim. All right? Thank you. Ms. Gabler?
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you mind if I ask, is your maiden name pronounced Lacobi or Lackaby?
Lackaby. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, I worked with a man named Lackaby at the at the Shreveport tax office many years ago. And we also had a milkman named Lackaby. Only 2 times in my life I ever heard that name until today. So please.
Likely relatives.
Right. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I know y'all have received my letter. Be there in person. And then I'd like to give a statement on behalf of our family as well in our opposition. And please bear with me because I'm a bit emotional. June 10th, 1994 was the worst day of my life. That is the day that Antonio Jackson made a decision to commit armed robbery and murder my father, Glenn Lackaby, and grandfather, Walter David Lackaby. This letter will reflect the changes in my life as a result of his actions that day. I was 12 years old that morning, sleeping in the bed with my mom. At 5:45 a.m., the phone rang and my mom answered. She was in an immediate panic. I remember her running across the street to my neighbor's house as she was frantically crying and screaming on the phone. By this time, my sister was awake and we were both terrified at whatever was happening. We were sitting on the front porch waiting what seemed like forever in that moment to see what it was. The neighbors came out a few minutes later to bring us over. There we sat, my sister and I listening to our mother explain that my daddy and papa had been robbed and had both been shot. I cannot begin to describe the feelings in that moment. We were scared, shocked, and confused. My maternal grandmother rushed over to bring us to the hospital, where we waited only a short time to learn that both daddy and papa were gone. In that moment, I saw my nana, Helen Lackaby, who was in the store at the time of the robbery and murders, sitting there frozen and fragile. Everyone was in complete shock, and the rest of that day was a complete blur. The next few days and weeks were crazy, confusing, and unbelievable. That day changed me and my life forever. That day, my family was broken. I always knew love in my family. My parents were divorced, but we were fortunate enough to have one big family where my mom's side and my dad's side still had holidays and special events together. Everyone celebrated life together and loved each other. I did not realize how special this was until I was older and saw that was not the case for most divorced families, but I had that, which I'm forever grateful for. My family did this to protect us because they loved us and loved each other. This is the kind of love and consideration I knew as a child, and I was blessed. On that day, June 10th, 1994, my sister and I lost our dad and our papa. My Nana not only lost her husband and son, but witnessed it. My Aunt Patty lost her brother and father. My mom lost her co-parent, her supporter, and the love of her life. The rest of our family members lost their brother, their cousins, nephews, uncles, and many others lost their friends. My daddy and papa were both firemen who loved life and loved helping each other. They were loved by everyone that knew them. They were fun-loving and hardworking. The world needs more people just like them. I could see how loved and respected they were everywhere we went together, every time someone mentioned knowing them. They were strong, brave men that would do anything for anyone. I loved spending time at the store with them, watching them cook barbecue on the weekends, and how they loved to sit around chatting with their friends at the store. These were the men that were supposed to be there to watch me grow up, teach me to drive, see me off to school dances, graduate, watch me get married, and guide me down the right path in life, and countless other milestones in life events. But that day at 12 years old, they were taken from me. My innocence was taken, along with my comfort, my safety, my stability, and my childlike view of the world. On that day, my whole outlook on life was changed. I now knew what evil was. I now knew that life could change in an instant behind another man's greed and selfishness. All of these things that children should be sheltered from, I could not avoid. I was 12 years old that day, unable to process what happened to me, to us, to them, and to my family. I was unable to cry for days, just numb. I had no idea how to deal with the feelings I had, and I was angry. No longer an innocent 12-year-old. I was now the victim. And my family, we were all victims now. The anger I had seemed to chase me as a teenager. I tried counseling, then spent many years as a teenager and early adult trying to numb my pain and avoid the grief. I turned to drugs and alcohol to cope. It wasn't until I got sober at 24 years old that I finally grieved properly. I had been so angry and so full of hate that I could not get over what happened in my childhood. I had struggles, fears, anger, depression, and sadness. These struggles were my reality for a very long time as a result of that day. I live a sober life now, and hopefully a life that Daddy and Papa can be proud of. Not a single day goes by that I don't think of them, the memories and the tragic events from that day. There are tears often when I think of them. Today I am 38 years old, the same age my daddy was when he was killed. 38 years old, that's how young he was when he was taken from us. It never gets easier or hurts less, as some might say. I think it just hurts different. They were taken too soon and with no regard for those that loved them and needed them. I needed them. I still need them. Those feelings are still here as mourning continues. When the arrests were made, there was relief. When the sentences were handed down, there was relief. This relief came from knowing the men responsible were to live the rest of their lives in prison. My family and I could rest easier, and justice was served. I never imagined that things would change and then Antonio would be eligible for parole with the possibility to get his life back, because we do not have a way to get our loved ones or our life back. It's upsetting that we must relive and reopen these wounds, the wounds that hurt me and hurt my family. This has been a difficult 6 months. When this was actually written in March, so it's we're talking about 9-10 months now, knowing that this hearing was scheduled. I pray that my family and I can go through this difficult time, whether we agree with the outcome or not. I pray that we can find peace. And as a family, I would like to say that our family struggles daily with the pain of losing my daddy and papa. We are here to strongly oppose Antonio's relief. The emotional toll this crime has taken on our family is indescribable. All of our memories of Daddy and Papa are marred by the pain of the loss from Antonio's decision that day. We will never get back what he has taken from us. He will never understand the pain and suffering his decision that day has caused. He will also never be able to right his wrong. Having to relive this since the law changed for his eligibility has caused extreme emotional trauma. This is trauma we thought we would never have to go through. I also believe someone sentenced without the possibility of release would not utilize his time in prison to better himself, which we obviously learned today with his disciplinary hearings. We firmly believe that the release would continue to cause further emotional damage and request the board to deny his release today. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Gabler. Mr. Hunley, I'm sorry I passed you by before. If we could hear from you, please.
No problem. Andrew Hunley, Executive Director of Louisiana Parole Project. First, I would like finding clients jobs in this area where they can reestablish their lives somewhere other than the area was the crime was committed. That's just something I'm offering to the board for their consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hunley. Mr. Jackson. Tell us what you'd like us to know before your attorney closes your presentation.
Well, sir, something that I would like for everyone to know is, yes, I have made mistakes in the past. Yes, I have been and continuously do things to better myself. I constantly take courses to help improve everything that I've done. I continuously try to better myself. I do what it takes. I work as a healthcare orderly 24/7 around the clock, helping other people that's disabled and whatever. I'm reaching out and doing what I can, and I will continue to better myself. And that's something that I will not give up. I do understand the pain and trauma that I caused the victims. I know I can't put myself in their shoes, to feel their pain. I did commit that crime when I was 17 years old. I understand the pain and hurt that I've caused you and your family. I understand the pain and hurt that I've caused the community. But over these 26 years, I assure you that I do understand everything and I take full responsibility for my actions. And I'm constantly and continuously trying to better myself and my situation and do whatever I can to make sure that I'm a better person than I once was before. I'm now a mature man with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I'm not the youngster that's immature and wild that I once was. And with that being said, sir, I ask that y'all take that into consideration, and I thank you for this opportunity that y'all have given me.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Perry?
Hello. My name is Drew Perry. As I've been introduced, I am a student worker for the LSU Parole and Reentry Clinic. Professor Lancaster is also here with us. As it's been said, Mr. Jackson has acknowledged and accepted the fact that Joseph Jackson and Randall Glenn Thomas made the worst error anyone can make that day. And from that day on, he's lived with it every single day of his life. And from that day on, he's tried improving himself little by little when he can. He makes mistakes. He tries fixing those mistakes and fixing himself. We see his apathy for education when he was younger was overcome by his desire to be something better than what he was when he first entered. He earned his GED in 2008. But there was before any idea of parole was a thought in his head. His idea is always to help himself, but then help the others who also make those same mistakes. As he said, he's tutored those in the same situation as him. He's stated that he's been a healthcare orderly in Ash 2 for the past 2 years, and he's been able to handle that stressful environment, especially with the COVID-19 going on right now. I believe they've been under quarantine for some time, and I believe that there's been definitely some problems from that. We've talked about discipline. Discipline's been mentioned. He's also stated his work in trying to fix himself, his thinking for his change, cultivating compassion. He does not want to make the same errors. He knows who he wants to be, and he is always striving to be better. He's hoping that this granting of parole will be able to prove that he is someone better, and he knows he can be better, become even better if granted parole. He plans on keep working on himself. As Mr. Hundley has mentioned, he has a wide array of skills sets and certifications that prove that finding any work will not be a problem. Whether it's, as Mr. Hundley mentioned, Baton Rouge would be no problem for him, including the fact that he has healthcare orderly experience and has actually been certified, also received the Offender Healthcare Training Program certificate. So I believe that even in this climate right now, he should be able to find something to work with. Mr. Jackson's been putting in tremendous effort. That's what I can say. He is prepared to enter. He has massive support from family. His fiance of 10 years, who he's known for for over 20 now, I believe. And I think with his ability to watch himself plus those watching with him, he is viable for re-entry, and as I humbly request he will accept any conditions that this parole board places upon him. Therefore, I humbly request the parole board to grant him parole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Is the panel prepared to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rochette.
Mr. Jackson, I want you to understand one thing before I render my decision. This decision today was completely in your control. I don't know exactly how long the Miller, Graham, and Montgomery cases have been decided, but you are aware that some 4, 5, 6 years ago that you might have a chance for parole eligibility. You had Mr. Montgomery, the lead person in the state of Louisiana, who sued the state of Louisiana for that right there in the same facility. So you had knowledge that you had an inkling that you might have a chance. But in 2018, you decided that you were not going to follow the rules and had 3 disciplinary write-ups. You were in the working cell block at least 2 times in the last 4 years. This decision was in your control. And I'm going to deliver the decision with understanding that you are in control, and the primary reason for my decision is what I would consider a lack of maturity and rehabilitation. You committed these offenses when you were approximately 40, 41 years old, 2 years ago. And you should have had the maturity and rehabilitation, knowing that you had an inkling of a chance for today's hearing, but you decided to go the other way. Based on a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable, I'd like to see anywhere from 3 to 5 years of spotless conduct after the batch of disciplinary write-ups you've had in the last 10 years. If it was one write-up 2 years ago, it might be a different story. But you had a batch of disciplinary write-ups in the last 10 years. And for that reason, for a lack of maturity and rehabilitation based upon a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable, secondary reasons that you have expressed opposition from the victim's family, expressed opposition from the legal community, I'll vote to deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Mr. Jackson, in reviewing your record, it's clear to me that you've done a lot of very positive things. You've got a welding certificate, you've got carpentry certificate, you've gotten your GED, you've taken substance abuse, you've taken a number of programs there that on paper really look good. And you've worked hard to do it. I am concerned, as Mr. Roche has pointed out, about your disciplinary actions. You have had 3 write-ups within the last couple of years, and 26 altogether, I believe. It's been, I'm just not ready, in spite of all of the things that you've done, to vote to release you today. I would suggest that you continue to work as hard as you've been working, take more programs to develop the maturity and the responsibility that Mr. Roche has outlined for you, and stay right up free. And hopefully the next time you come up for parole, you'll be granted. But my vote today is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Jackson, what nobody's talked much about today is your work as a healthcare orderly. And I want to commend you for that. My belief is that that work, the compassion that you show people who are helpless and who need your help, the compassion you demonstrate is such a stark contrast with what you did when you were 17, and it deserves mention. And I strongly encourage you to keep doing that work. I join my colleagues in voting to deny your parole, but I also join them in encouraging you to keep your head up and keep doing what you're doing. The Supreme Court said that in cases like yours, that demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation is the phrase that we should pay particular attention to in deciding whether to parole you. I think that you more time with your best behavior and your service to your fellow inmates who need your help is a good way to demonstrate your maturity and rehabilitation. So good luck to you. Your parole today has been denied.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And of course, it repeats itself over and over and over again. It's clockwork. You can almost guarantee it right before the victims speak, right before you hear this emotional outpour of raw emotion. You have supporters that come up and talk about butterflies and rainbows and turtles. And I mean, just the words that were said, they were so shocking. I understand he's made mistakes. I hate that mistakes happen, but he's human, as we all are. And it's like, you killed 2 people. You murdered a father and a son. Not only that, but the wife of the father, the mother, she was in the store too. I mean, and then you have the texting from Andrew Hunley, like, please. And we can talk about what Andrew Hunley did. Actually, let me just show you what Andrew Hunley did from the Parole Project before we get into this. On the early morning hours of 1997, the partially burned body of a 14-year-old girl was found behind a store in Louisiana. Okay, he killed and burnt the body of a 14-year-old girl. Yeah, he was a teenager too, but are you kidding me? If we heard about this stuff today in true crime, you would say he's getting life. He's never getting out. But not only is he out, but he's running the parole project, giving speeches on behalf of other murderers. On the request of officers from the police department, the defendant was brought by his parents for questioning. After being advised of waiving his rights, the defendant confessed to murdering her by hitting her numerous times in the head with a piece of metal-looking board. He admitted that he had visited the crime scene 3 times, ultimately setting the body on fire, and he did that because she turned him down. Okay? That's Andrew Hunley for you. And if you're curious about Kerry Myers murdered his wife and nearly killed his own infant child. And his story was so absurd, it was actually comical what he had claimed. It was all over the news. I've shown it to you before, but he actually claimed, like a Family Guy episode, that he was wrestling the man who he claims was sleeping with his wife for like 15 hours in the home. So long they were wrestling, they actually stopped to watch TV together. Yes, I'm not kidding. That's part of Kerry Myers' story. But let's go into the facts of this case. Thank you, Sir Richard, for providing all of it. And because there are 3, perpetrators, there are 3 appeals, but we're only going to go through one. And gosh, 1996. In the early June 1994, the Shreveport men, the defendant and Antonio M. Jackson and Joseph Lee Jackson, the 3 of them, right? 2 of them are brothers, decided to rob their Burford grocery store. The defendant, armed with a .22 caliber handgun, drove the men to the store in early morning hours of June 10th. At least one of the other men was armed with a large caliber revolver. The defendants entered the store first. So this is for the other one, but I picked this one because it goes into a little bit more detail. And he was followed by both Jacksons. Now, David and his son Glenn, so this is a father and son who both lost their lives. They were opening the store as the men came inside. Now, David drew his .357, and this is, it's just interesting. A .357 against a .22, right? My brother carries a .357. Anyways, so revolver, and he fired at the defendant. So he used the first shot. He hit him, right? And this is what, again, it's just, you just never know. You hear about, a .357, or this and that, but the bottom line is you just never know. Every situation is different. And he hit him. He struck. He struck the defendant in the abdomen. The defendant then shot David twice, fatally wounding him before running out of the store. Shortly thereafter, one of the Jacksons, so one of the brothers, shot Glenn, killing him instantly. And then they stole $400. All of this for $400. When Jackson left the store, they discovered that the defendant had already fled in the vehicle. So the guy who was shot ditched both of them in the store. Okay, that's that's what happened. So the 2 men ran across Mansfield Road, where they hitched a ride to a bus stop and later caught a bus to their home. An anonymous tip 2 weeks later led to the 3 men, and they confessed to their crimes. They were all indicted on first-degree murder. Now, there's a little bit more details about how the crime went down. I can share it with you here. So David was fatally wounded. Thomas, who was hit in the abdomen by one of David's shots, ran for the store and drove away in the vehicle. I hate how they say drove away in the robber's vehicle. This was confusing me so much because he is the robber. I'm like, why are they? And I had to read the other appeals to finally wrap my mind. It's just a poorly written appeal. It's like he drove away in their vehicle. But while not clear, because he is the robber also, while not clear which one, either Jackson or the defendant shot and killed Glenn, who they said was kneeling by the safe near the rear of the store. So he's kneeling by the safe because remember what happened. So they came into the store, and it wasn't an instant draw like what they said in the other appeal. They came into the store. They took one of them. So as Jackson and the defendant took Glenn, his son to the back of the store. I'm sorry, who took Glenn, who was, right, the son, to the back of the store. David pulled out his weapon, the father, and shot at Jackson. So it wasn't instant, right? He was taking him to the back to open up the safe. Thomas, who was hit in the abdomen by one of David's shots, ran from the store and drove away in their car. While not clear which one, either Jackson or the defendant shot and killed Glenn, who was kneeling by the safe. Then Helene, who is David's wife and Glenn's mother, she was there the whole time. She hid in a small office inside the store and called 911. And you know what? He probably would have gotten parole, like Mr. Roche said, if he had had a better record. And there are, Sir Richard, of course, who doesn't miss anything. Okay, so anyways, we went through the appeal. We could see the crime. It's not even clear to me if he was the one that pulled the trigger or if it was his brother. In my opinion, personally, it does make a difference to me but regardless, it doesn't make a difference whether you should get parole. I think it makes a difference in understanding who the person is. If you pull the trigger at someone kneeling down by a safe, versus being one of the three people that went into the store without holding a gun. But I get that. I get that they all should be tried the same. But that is a question I always like to ask. What do you think? But again, you can't take the life of a father and a grandfather. And here he was the age of 38 years old. And then it's just such a horrific crime. It really is. And it's so senseless. Over $400. It's just so senseless. Just destroy a family, destroy generations. And then to sit there and say, oh, release him because, you should. It's like, and really it's like the gall to ask to release him when his record is horrible as the way it is. It's just, anyways. So there it is. And I'll be covering more of these hearings. Found a lot from 2020 that I do want to go through. So let me know what your thoughts are on that in the comment section below. And with that, I'll let you go.
On that day, June 10th, 1994, my sister and I lost our dad and our papa. My nana not only lost her husband and son, but witnessed it. My Aunt Patty lost her brother and father. My mom lost her co-parent, her supporter, and the love of her life. The rest of our family members lost their brother, their cousins, nephews, uncles, and many others lost their friends. My daddy and papa were both firemen who loved life and loved helping each other. They were loved by everyone that knew them. They were fun-loving and hardworking. The world needs more people just like them.